Imagine this: a worn ladder leans against your fence, then blooms into a charcoal-stained shelf, copper glints at the corners, herbs step upward like a tiny hillside. A rain gutter turns into a silver ribbon, dripping softly into a pebble bowl. Bottles warm to life, a quiet galaxy swinging under leaves. In a shallow enamel basin, water hushes the afternoon. Mirror strips borrow sunlight and pour it back into the shade. It's still your small space, but now it feels curated, calm, and expensive, built from things you nearly threw away. Stay with me, and I'll show you how to give your garden that boutique glow, piece by upcycled piece. Welcome to Arkan Aesthetic Studio, where trash becomes treasure and small spaces get fairy industrial magic. If you love designer looks on a recycle-friendly budget, subscribe and ring the bell. This Upcycle series drops every week. I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Tell me your city or country in the comments so I can tailor ideas for your climate and space. One, Ladder Arcadia Vertical Shelf. Picture this: an old ladder, forgotten in the corner of a shed, its steps worn smooth from years of climbing. Now, it leans against a fence like a frame waiting for life to return. Layer by layer, pots of herbs rise upward, basil breathing its spice into the air, thyme spilling in green cascades, rosemary lifting its needles toward the sun. The dark charcoal stain deepens the wood's grain, and small copper glimmers mark each joint, turning utility into quiet ornament. This is not just a shelf, but a hillside in miniature, a vertical meadow sculpted from the past. Each rung becomes a terrace, a small balcony for roots and leaves. The rhythm of upward growth echoes our own need to reach higher, to build beauty in layers rather than all at once. Stand back, and the ladder looks less like salvage, more like a crafted sculpture. It feels timeless, as though it belongs equally in a rustic courtyard or a boutique city patio. The ladder whispers that nothing is wasted, that every forgotten frame still holds a story if lifted into the light. And just beyond, another idea waits, where water and wood meet to create a ribbon that both grows and drips, carrying the garden's breath into motion. Two, Gutter Ribbon Planter plus Mini Drip Chain. Imagine a silver ribbon stretched across a wooden fence, not of satin, but of metal once used to guide the rain. The gutter, stripped from its roofline duty, now holds soil and life. From its edge spill herbs, mint leaves trembling in the breeze, thyme softening the straight line with trailing green lace. 3 tiers cascade like stanzas of a poem, each one catching light and shadow in turn. At the gutter's end, a small chain guides water downward, drop by drop, into a tray of rounded pebbles. The sound is soft, like a whisper of rain remembered from another season. Copper glints along the edges, turning something utilitarian into a piece of jewelry for the garden wall. This planter is more than an object. It's a reminder that flow is nature's gift. What once carried storms now nurtures growth. It bridges the raw with the refined, the discarded with the desired. Stand close and you'll hear the dialogue between water and stone, between plant and vessel. Step back, and it becomes a ribbon of life unfurled against the fence. a vertical garden that sings in quiet measures. And not far away, another constellation awaits, where glass bottles glow like captured fireflies, suspended in a galaxy of light. Three, Bottle Lantern Galaxy Rail. At twilight, the garden shifts from green daylight to a softer world of glow. Along a wooden rail, glass bottles hang like captured fragments of the night sky. Each bottle holds a quiet constellation, warm light diffused through frosted glass, a gentle shimmer resting against copper-capped tops. They sway with the breeze, whispering stories of fireflies and forgotten lanterns. This is more than recycled glass. It's a galaxy at arm's length. The rail becomes a horizon line, steady and dark, while above it the bottles sparkle like a handcrafted Milky Way. Shadows ripple on the fence, pools of light scatter across gravel and leaves, turning ordinary corners into places of gathering and pause. There is poetry in these lanterns, the balance of fragility and strength, the beauty of light contained within what was once discarded. The magnets holding each bottle make them as practical as they are magical. Easy to tend, easy to renew. Stand beneath them, and the sky feels nearer. Sit beside them, and conversations grow slower, warmer, more alive. The Bottle Lantern Galaxy reminds us that stars can be made, not only seen, that we can coax the night's wonder into our own hands. And beyond, waiting in the hush, lies water, a shallow bowl where reflection and stillness weave another layer of peace. Four, Enamel Quiet Bowl Micro Pond. In the quiet of a garden corner, a simple enamel basin becomes a mirror to the sky. Its rim, dark and modest, frames a circle of water where reflections linger, branches bending into its depth, clouds drifting across its surface. Beneath the ripples, pebbles rest like memories, smooth and weightless in their silence. A single leaf floats, its shadow dancing with each breath of wind. This bowl is more than a vessel. It is a stillness you can touch. The smallest fountain within hums gently, a murmur softer than words, enough to remind you that water carries life even when it whispers. Green tendrils of aquatic plants curl upward, tracing patterns of patience, while the basin itself recalls kitchens and workrooms, reborn now as sanctuary. Sit beside it, and time slows. The enamel's cool sheen catches fading light, while the water gathers moments that pass unnoticed elsewhere. It is a pond without grand ambition, yet it holds the essence of rivers, rains, and oceans in its modest circle. Every garden deserves a pause like this, an ordinary object made extraordinary by water's presence. From this stillness, the story continues, flowing into the reflective play of light and shadow along a fence lined with mirror strips, where the garden doubles itself into something larger. Five, Mirror Strip Portal Fence. There are places where a garden feels larger than it is, not by adding more ground, but by borrowing light and reflection. Along a simple wooden fence, narrow strips of mirror stand like silent windows. They catch every glimmer, the sway of leaves, the curve of a flower, the passing of a cloud. Suddenly, the small space is doubled, the walls dissolve, and the garden opens to something imagined. Unlike broken shards, these strips are deliberate, calm, and precise. Their clean edges echo the lines of architecture, while their surfaces weave the natural world into patterns of shifting brilliance. Ivy drapes into its own reflection, becoming twice as lush. Lantern light multiplies at dusk, scattering warmth across the fence. To stand before this portal is to be reminded that beauty often hides in perception. It teaches us that size is not always a measure of presence. Sometimes, it is the play of reflection that expands the soul of a space. With every glance, the garden feels both familiar and new, like seeing the world through a softened lens. And as light fades from the mirrored fence, another form of beauty emerges, a simple chair waiting nearby, transformed into a quiet threshold of growth. Six, threshold chair planter. At the threshold of a garden, an old chair stands reborn. Its seat is gone, replaced by a vessel of earth where roots now dwell. Grey wash softens its frame, giving the wood the patina of time, while a small copper tag glimmers in the light, a quiet declaration that even what is broken can welcome life again. The planter it holds is more than soil and green. It is a gesture of arrival. Passing through, you sense the chair's invitation. Here begins the realm of rest and wonder. Herbs spill gently from its center, lavender brushing the air with calm, mint brightening the breeze, tiny blossoms nodding to those who enter. The chair carries its history, the creak of years, the weight of those who once rested upon it. Yet now it becomes a host, offering not comfort to the body, but nourishment to the senses. It is a marker, a gatekeeper, a symbol of renewal standing where paths divide. Each time the copper tag catches the sun, it reminds us that memory itself can bloom. And from this modest seat of renewal, our gaze drifts toward another transformation, where a teapot tips forward to spill not tea, but a ribbon of water in endless play. Seven, teapot shelf fountain. From a shelf tucked into the garden wall, a teapot leans forward as if to pour an unseen guest a drink. But instead of tea, a ribbon of water spills gently from its spout, falling into a tray of smooth pebbles. The sound is light, half laughter, half lullaby, echoing the memory of quiet kitchens and rainy afternoons. The teapot itself carries its history, porcelain chipped or enamel dulled by years of service. Yet here it is reborn, offering refreshment not to lips but to leaves, not to cups but to roots. Beneath the pebbles, a hidden hose carries the water back, unseen, so the cycle never ends, an endless offering in miniature. There is magic in this transformation. The ordinary vessel elevated to a fountain, the shelf transformed into a stage for water's dance. Copper glints in the light, droplets shimmer as they fall, and the garden listens as if the world itself were being poured out slowly, drop by drop. It is a reminder that flow need not be grand to be meaningful. Even the smallest stream can soothe, can steady. And from this playful spill, our eyes are drawn upward, toward a humble colander that now cradles roots and vines, hung like a rustic crown in the air. Eight, Colander air root hanger. Suspended in the air, a humble kitchen colander takes on a second life. Its round body, once drained of pasta and fruit, now cradles soil and roots. Coir and burlap wrap its form, softening the metal, holding moisture while letting the air breathe through. From its sides spill trailing vines, ivy reaching downward, herbs stretching outward, like a crown woven from green threads. Beneath it, a clear saucer gathers drops of water, each one a glinting bead that marks the rhythm of care. The copper hooks gleam against the wood above, lending an industrial grace to this airy garden jewel. It feels at once rustic and delicate, a fragment of the everyday elevated into design. To stand beneath the colander is to feel a canopy forming above, a gentle chandelier of leaves and tendrils. The plants seem lighter here, swaying with the breeze, closer to the sun. The object teaches us that the air itself can be part of the garden, that roots may breathe as freely as branches if given the chance. It is a piece that reminds us, life flows in circles, from kitchen to garden, from vessel to vessel. And just beneath its hanging shadow, the path continues, where broken tiles and bottle edges create a checkerboard of scent and step, guiding the wanderer forward. Nine, checker and scent path. Beneath your steps, the garden begins to sing, not with sound, but with scent. A path stretches forward in a rhythm of squares, reclaimed tiles alternating with seams of thyme and oregano. With each footfall, fragrance stirs, rising like memory, a perfume of kitchens and fields woven into the very ground you walk on. Alongside this checkerboard, glass bottles stand upright, their necks pressed into soil like quiet guardians. Arranged in a gradient from deep green to pale amber, they catch the light, refracting it into soft jewels along the border. What was once refuse now becomes a ribbon of color framing the way forward. The path is not just practical, it is an experience. Every stone, every herb-filled seam is a reminder that beauty grows not only upward but also beneath us. It teaches us to walk slower, to let the fragrance of living earth mark our journey. As sunlight shifts, the bottles glow differently, casting an ever-changing mosaic of light onto leaves and soil. And just beyond, leaning against a fence, a frame of wood waits, transformed into a trellis where vines climb toward the sky, turning discarded pallets into windows for green ascent. Pallet Windowframe Trellis. At the edge of the garden, an old pallet stands transformed, cut into the shape of a window. Its frame, once coarse and utilitarian, is softened by the touch of climbing vines. Leaves weave upward through the grid, filling the empty spaces with patterns of green, as if the air itself were turning into a living tapestry. Mounted cleanly with a hidden French cleat, the trellis floats slightly away from the fence, casting shadows that shift as the sun moves. In morning light, it glows like an open gate. At dusk, lanterns nearby spill warmth across its wooden grain, turning it into a glowing portrait of growth. This trellis is not just structure, it is invitation. It teaches us to look at frames not only as borders, but as thresholds, portals that hint at what can grow beyond them. Where once the pallet carried weight, now it carries beauty. Where once it supported boxes, Now it supports life. Standing before it, one senses the harmony of form and function, an industrial remnant reborn as a stage for nature. And beyond this living window, another craft emerges, an old frame of glass joined together into a tiny greenhouse, where seasons bend and seedlings thrive year-round. (11) Mini greenhouse from old frames. In a quiet corner of the garden, glass rises like a lantern of light. Old window frames, their hinges worn, their paint softened by years of weather, are joined together to form a small house for seedlings. The panes catch the sun, holding warmth within, while a magnetic vent at the top allows the air to breathe. An old trick turned new to balance shelter and sky. Inside, green lives begin, tiny sprouts, tender herbs, delicate shoots leaning toward the glass. Moisture beads across the panes, painting them with patterns that change as day unfolds. This is a world within a world, a reminder that growth often begins in places unseen, protected, yet connected to the greater rhythm outside. The greenhouse carries with it the spirit of preservation. What once framed views in a house now frames the future of a garden. Each joint tells a story of hands that built, of windows once open to breezes, now repurposed to hold the breath of seedlings. To lean near this greenhouse is to feel time compress. The past in the wood, the present in the glass, the future in the roots pressing downward. And just beside it, another relic of work and rest waits, reborn as a habitat not for plants, but for creatures of wing and buzz. (12) Bee Motel plus Butterfly Puddle Stack. Upon a single weathered post, life gathers. At its crown rests a bundle of hollow bamboo, each tube a doorway for bees seeking refuge. Their quiet hum fills the garden, a sound both industrious and reassuring. Below, a shallow clay dish holds sand and a little water, offering butterflies a place to pause, to sip, to shimmer their wings in sunlight. Together, they form a vertical sanctuary, stacked gifts for creatures that keep the garden alive. The Bee Motel speaks of patience, each chamber carved by nature, now arranged with care by human hands. The Butterfly Puddle, in contrast, is ephemeral, a place where light and water linger briefly before fading. Yet both remind us that beauty thrives in the balance of permanence and transience. This single post becomes more than wood and clay. It becomes a beacon of welcome, a pillar that bridges wildness and design. The copper screws that hold it gleam like small suns, while the wings that visit it catch the air and scatter color. Standing near, you sense the pulse of the garden extend beyond roots and stems. It is a community, woven together by flight, by nectar, by shelter. And just steps away, another object of the everyday waits to surprise us. An old boot, transformed into a vessel where greenery takes root and humor meets grace. (13) Boot rail planters. Along a wooden rail, old boots find a second stride. No longer carrying footsteps, they cradle roots instead. Soil tucked neatly into waterproof liners, herbs and blossoms spilling where laces once tied. Their leather and rubber bear the marks of years, creases that now frame new life. Each boot becomes a story, one once worn in rain, another in work, now gathered together like a chorus of memories turned to bloom. The sight is playful, yet profound. A row of boots lined in order makes the garden smile, but it also speaks of resilience, the idea that nothing is too worn to be useful again. Herbs climb from their tops like breath rising, mint and parsley softening their rugged shapes. Flowers tumble from edges, turning rugged soles into vases. As the sunlight shifts, copper tags catch the light, reminding us that even the most whimsical of ideas can hold elegance when shaped with care. The rail itself becomes a stage, where boots once meant for journeys now host growth rooted firmly in place. To walk by this rail is to feel welcomed by humor and warmth, by the garden's reminder not to take beauty too seriously. And just nearby, drawers long forgotten are stacked, offering a cascade of soil and bloom, layered like pages of a story yet unfolding. Dresser drawer Cascade Garden. Against the garden wall, a dresser once abandoned finds a new life. Its drawers, once filled with fabric and keepsakes, now cradle soil and green. Pulled open at different depths, they cascade like terraces on a hillside, each layer holding herbs that breathe fragrance into the air. Grey wash softens the wood, giving it the quiet dignity of age, while copper handles gleam like small suns. Rosemary rises upright in the upper drawer. Thyme spills over in gentle drifts, and basil rests in the middle, its leaves wide and inviting. Together, they form a living arrangement that is both orderly and wild. The dresser tells a story of transformation. An object once rooted in the intimacy of home now becomes part of the garden's dialogue. Its compartments are no longer secret but open, generous, overflowing with life. There is humor here, too. A chest of drawers turned into a chest of blooms, the familiar reinvented. To pause before it is to feel that time itself can be rearranged. The past sits comfortably beside the present, offering continuity rather than loss. And from this cascade of memory and growth, the eye drifts toward another vessel, larger, grander, once destined for water but now overflowing with a meadow of flowers in steel and porcelain. Antique Bathtub Meadow. In the heart of the garden rests a relic of another age, an antique bathtub, porcelain dulled by time, faucet gleaming faintly with copper ware. No longer a vessel for water, it now brims with soil and wildness. From its hollow rise daisies and lavender, marigolds and meadow grass, weaving themselves into a patchwork of color and texture. The tub holds a meadow in miniature, a pocket of the countryside tucked neatly into a frame of porcelain. Its rim is softened by blooms that spill over like fabric draped from a windowsill, blurring the boundary between vessel and earth. Here, low-care plants thrive with quiet persistence, asking little yet offering abundance. There is humor in its presence, this grand object of the indoors finding a final rest beneath sky and sun. And yet, it feels dignified, as if the years have conspired to place it here, reborn as sanctuary. To sit near it is to breathe the memory of fields, to feel the intimacy of nature stitched into a garden corner. The antique tub whispers that beauty does not fade, it only shifts its form. And as petals sway gently at its rim, Another silhouette comes into view. A chandelier frame, no longer holding light, now transformed into a crown of trailing green. "16. Chandelier Planter Revival." From the rafters of a pergola or the branch of an old tree, a chandelier sways, not with crystals or candles, but with vines and flowers. Its arms, once built to hold light, now cradle soil and green, each cup brimming with ivy that spills downward in soft cascades. Together, they form a crown of life, a circle where rust and leaf entwine. The chandelier carries with it the echoes of banquet halls, of rooms once bright with celebration. Now, it turns its elegance outward, gifting the garden a touch of grace reclaimed from forgotten corners. Metal darkened with time contrasts against the tender green, a union of strength and fragility that feels both whimsical and refined. When the wind passes, the chandelier planter becomes alive, swaying slightly, letting vines dance like ribbons. At dusk, lanterns nearby mirror its presence, casting a glow that makes the greenery seem to shimmer. It is a reminder that grandeur does not fade with age. It simply changes its stage. Suspended above, the chandelier becomes a crown of renewal, a beacon of beauty made from what was once discarded. And beneath its hanging form, the path leads onward, toward a frame of iron and wood reborn as a slender pergola, offering shelter in narrow spaces. "17. Bedframe Slim Pergola." From the bones of a bed, a shelter rises. Iron frames that once held dreams and rest are reborn as vertical supports, narrow yet strong, standing like sentinels at the edge of a garden path. Above them, wooden beams cross, catching light and shadow, forming a canopy where vines may climb and weave. This slim pergola does not sprawl. It respects the smallness of space, offering height rather than width, grace rather than mass. Ivy stretches upward along its sides, reaching for the beams where sunlight filters in broken patterns. Beneath, a bench waits, its seat softened by leaves and lantern light. The structure is both humble and grand. To pass through it is to step into a frame that feels like an entrance, a passage between what is ordinary and what is held apart. Its iron tells the story of nights long past, of a bed that carried countless hours of rest. Now, it carries the weight of new life in leaves and flowers. It reminds us that shelter need not be built new, that even fragments of the familiar can create thresholds worth walking through. And as you leave its shadow, the garden greets you again, where jars hang like tiny galaxies, each glowing softly against the night. "18. Jar Lantern Galaxy." As dusk falls, the garden changes its voice. Where the day was filled with green and song, the evening opens with quiet light. Above, jars hang suspended in clusters, each one holding a universe of tiny stars. Their glow is soft, golden, like the memory of fireflies caught in glass. Together, they scatter across the pergola and fence, forming a galaxy that seems to drift closer with every breath. The jars carry with them the simplicity of the everyday, vessels once filled with preserves and jam, now filled with light instead of sweetness. Solar strings wind inside, charging under the sun and releasing their warmth at night. It is a cycle as old as the heavens, the sun passing its glow to the stars, the garden carrying its day into the night. To walk beneath them is to step into wonder. Shadows soften, pathways glow, and every leaf seems edged in light. The garden is no longer just a place of growth, but a place of gathering, of quiet evenings where time slows and hearts settle. And as the night deepens, the path leads on, toward a rustic bench, carved from wood and stone, where one might sit beneath the lantern galaxy and rest in the timeless hush of the garden's embrace. "19. Crate bench with hidden storage." At the garden's edge, a seat waits, born not of polished design, but of crates once meant for carrying goods. Stacked and bound, their wooden sides form both bench and box, a place to sit and a place to store. Above, the surface is softened by a cushion, simple and welcoming. Beneath, compartments hide tools, seeds, or the treasures of a gardener's day. The crate bench carries a rustic honesty. Its grain is rough, its lines uneven, yet together they create a seat that feels timeless, practical, and true. Hinges open with a creak, revealing the quiet utility beneath, while copper handles catch the sun like accents of intention. To sit upon it is to rest within the rhythm of the garden. The scent of time nearby, the lantern glow as evening draws in, the quiet company of leaves whispering above. It is not merely furniture. It is a companion to the garden's work and wonder, holding both rest and readiness within its form. Here, one learns that beauty lies not only in what is seen, but also in what is hidden. And just beyond this place of rest, light begins to gather in unexpected shapes. A trellis of branches strung with tiny bulbs, sketching leaf-like shadows into the night. "20. Branch string leaf silhouette light." At nightfall, the garden takes on a softer language. A frame of branches, simple and unrefined, becomes a canvas for light. Strung with delicate bulbs, the twigs cast patterns upon the wall, shadows that resemble leaves, veins of nature drawn in flickering glow. It is as if the garden itself is sketching, etching memory in light and dark. The branches are humble, gathered from fallen limbs, yet arranged with quiet intention. Their crooked lines echo the wildness of trees, but when touched by light, they bloom again in silhouette. Each shadow moves with the breeze, a living drawing that changes with the air. To stand before it is to feel surrounded not only by plants but by their ghostly kin, their essence doubled and softened. The glow is warm, reminiscent of lanterns and hearths, but it is also playful, hinting at magic born of nothing more than string, twig, and imagination. This piece reminds us that beauty does not demand permanence. It can live in shadows, in fleeting glimmers, in the spaces where form dissolves into suggestion. And just beyond this quiet theater of light, the path opens once more, lined with runes of stone, carved into earth as a guide for steps and seasons. "21. Pebble-Runes Path." Beneath the feet, the garden speaks in stone. A path stretches forward, each step marked not only by shape but by meaning. Smooth pebbles are pressed into concrete, forming spirals, lines, and symbols that recall runes of forgotten times. They do not need to be read as words. Their presence is enough, whispering of journeys, of guidance, of continuity between earth and sky. The stones shine when wet, their pale forms glowing against the darker ground, like stars scattered along the soil. Moss creeps between them, softening the edges, weaving life into geometry. Herbs planted nearby brush the air with scent, their fragrance rising as footsteps stir them. To walk this path is to enter a rhythm, step, symbol, breath, memory. It is a passage not only through the garden but through reflection itself, each motif a quiet reminder that our own paths are made, not given, shaped by hands and choices as much as by nature. Here, practicality and poetry are bound together. The stones hold the earth firm, yet they also hold imagination. They remind us that every journey is part map, part mystery. And at the end of this rune-marked way, a chain of bottles glimmers, guiding rain into a bed of polished stone below. "22. Bottle rain chain to pebble tray." When the rain comes, it does not fall unseen. It is caught, guided, and celebrated. Along the eaves, a chain of glass bottles descends, each piece cut and inverted, forming a pathway for water. Drop by drop, stream by stream, the rain slips through them, glimmering as it travels downward. At the base, a shallow tray of smooth pebbles receives the flow, turning each fall into ripples that shimmer across stone. The bottles are green and amber, fragments once destined for waste. Now they hang like jewels, refracting the light of storm and sun alike. When dry, they are sculpture. When wet, they are symphony. The sound of trickling water joins the garden's chorus, soft and timeless. There is beauty in the cycle. Rain that might have disappeared into soil now pauses, plays, and refreshes before returning to earth. The pebbles gleam darker with moisture, their colors richer, their presence more profound. This rain chain reminds us that even the sky's offerings can be shaped into art. It is utility transformed into wonder, necessity dressed as magic. And just beside it, a smaller vessel waits, a humble tin-turned pond, where reflections shimmer in a bowl of silver light. "23. Biscuit-Tin micro pond." In a shallow circle of tin, the garden holds a sky of its own. An old biscuit tin, once filled with sweets and celebration, now brims with water that mirrors the clouds above. Within its rim float leaves of duckweed and lily, their green discs drifting gently with every breeze. The surface is calm, a mirror and a stage at once. Sunlight ripples across it, and in the evening, lantern light gathers there, shimmering like a second moon. It is a pond in miniature, no wider than an arm's reach, yet vast in the stories it tells. There is something tender about its scale. Here, one can lean close, watching reflections bend and shift, seeing the world reduced to a bowl of silver. The tin bears its age in scratches and dents, yet these marks only deepen its charm, reminding us that beauty often resides in what endures. This micro-pond is a pause, a breath in the midst of the garden. It asks nothing but to exist, to hold water and let life touch it lightly. And as eyes linger on its stillness, they are drawn onward to a taller frame nearby, where old wood has been bound into a pergola slim and strong, guiding vines into upward bloom. '24 Driftwood Trellis Fan. From the shore, driftwood finds a second life, not as debris cast aside by the tide, but as a frame for growth. Arranged in a fan, its pale arms radiate outward like rays of a rising sun. Each weathered piece holds the memory of waves, of time and salt, yet together they form a trellis where vines may climb and flourish. At its base, ivy and morning glory wind upward, seeking the light. As days pass, the plants weave themselves into the driftwood's open arms, turning bare beams into a living fan of green. Each curve of wood becomes a line in nature's drawing, each knot and crack a detail of history preserved in form. The trellis stands as more than support. It is a reminder of transformation. Driftwood, once tumbled endlessly by water, now holds stillness and purpose, anchoring growth instead of surrendering to current. Against the garden wall, it appears both rustic and radiant, a natural sculpture alive with climbing leaves. In the quiet evening, lanterns hung nearby cast long shadows through the fan, like sunlight remembered. And as the eyes linger on this radiating climb, they are drawn onward, toward a backdrop washed in soft lime hues, where painted boards whisper of tea leaves and calm horizons. '25 Lime-washed tea leaf backdrop. At the garden's edge, color speaks softly. A wall, once plain and forgotten, now breathes with the wash of lime and the whisper of green. Tones like steeped tea leaves, pale and calming. The surface is not uniform. It ripples with brush strokes, with shades that drift between shadow and sun, like light filtered through leaves. This backdrop is not loud. It does not clamor for attention. Instead, it gives space for the plants before it to shine, setting a stage of gentle hues where blooms and vines can tell their stories. The lime wash lends texture, a chalky honesty that feels both rustic and refined. Standing before it, one feels as though the wall itself has become part of the garden. Less boundary, more companion. Ivy drapes across it, lantern light warms its tones in the evening, and in daylight, the pale green recalls the calm of quiet mornings, a cup of tea held in hand. It is a reminder that transformation need not be grand to be profound. Sometimes, a shift of color, a touch of texture, can reshape the spirit of a space. And as the gaze lingers on this softened wall, the garden invites one more secret, a seat of driftwood and stone, where rustic form becomes a place to rest. Which build stole your heart? The ladder garden, the mirror portal, or the quiet bowl pond? Drop a timestamp and your favorite idea below. If this gave you sparks, like the video, share it with a garden friend, and subscribe so you don't miss next week's drop. Tag your photos with #ArkanTrashToTreasure. I'll feature viewer makeovers in upcoming episodes. Until then, keep the glow gentle, the water whispering, and the magic handmade.